Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Thursday. It is December 8th. Dustin Schutte with me along the way. Appreciate you joining us. John, the producer's at the controls. Keep us between the white lines. Indiana basketball coming off of a win, getting back on the winning ways last night. That, plenty more to get to. We'll hear from Mike Woodson. Let's see, Trace Jackson Davis. Triple-double, baby. What a night he had. Trey Galloway, a career high. And plenty of other things going on. Transfer portals, wild and wacky world. Dustin Schutte, how's it going with you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to, now that we can talk about Indiana back on the winning ways a little bit, seeing them bounce back nicely after that loss to Rutgers. So that was a positive to see, but I'm doing great.
As well, a late night last night with the 8:30 tip, but it could have been worse. But boy, this is going to be a long day. Head out to Las Vegas tonight. I will arrive at 2 a.m. our time. About 5 hours in front of doing this very same show again tomorrow. But looking forward to it. Indiana gets a win last night, a comfortable win over a Nebraska team that was coming in off of some high hopes after a shocking upset of number 7 Creighton. And I'll be honest with you, I never saw at any point where Indiana was really pushed last night. I never thought that Nebraska really threatened them at any point. They got it to the closest they got was getting to single digits. I mean, that was as close as they pushed. And that happened. There was a point in the second half where they made a run. They got it down to single digits, I think. And I can't remember if Indiana extended it out to 21 at that time and it came back down. But Indiana had a 21-point lead at one point. And then they did what they have got to learn to not do. They took their foot off their throat.
Yes.
You cannot do that. This team especially can't do that because it's not the most prolifically shooting team. So when you have that, I don't care who you're playing. You've got to just keep the accelerator on the floor. But
yeah,
what a night for Trace Jackson Davis, a triple-double, like I said, 12 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, career high, 20 points for Trey Galloway, getting the start over Jalen Hood-Schifino. And now, will he play Saturday? That's a key.
That's going to be key. It was a fun game to watch if you were an Indiana fan last night. I think really the only run Nebraska had was those first 5 minutes out of halftime when it went down to a 7-point game and they were doing some things. CJ Wilcher for Nebraska had a pretty good game. But I saw something last night, Jim, that I thought was hilarious. Our friend Zach Osterman tweeted it out from the Indy Star. Trey Galloway with 20 points hit some big shots last night. He said, "There's so much Kobe Bryant and Trey Galloway," and I laughed out loud at that. I thought that was a pretty good. Comment. But you talk about a guy going from having one of the worst performances he's had. He didn't score at all in that Rutgers game. Kind of looked out of sorts, out of place. And then to turn it up, not just from behind the 3-point line, but there were times when he drove to the basket, got some good looks, set his teammates up. I still have some concerns about Xavier Johnson. He does not look comfortable when Jalen Hood-Schifino's not on the floor. I think he ended up with 7 or 8 turnovers last night, if you count those 2 offensive fouls. And you can argue about the offensive fouls. I understand that, but
they were stupid. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to stop you. Those 2 calls were both horrid.
I think the second one was. I think the second one was. I think the first one was bad. I think the second one was okay.
No.
No.
And I'm the first one. I will tell you, man. I'm not going to. This is truth telling here, man. Kenneth says there are so many positive things about last night's game. I hope that we could just focus on those instead of taking time to criticize those that may have struggled for just a day. He calls it a holiday from the hating. Well, there's no hating that goes on here, brother. But this is where the truth is told, man. This is not a fan site, unfortunately.
By the way, you know what I thought was funny?
Tell the truth, baby.
You know what I thought was funny is the last couple of days we talked about how Race Thompson should not shoot a 3. And his very first 3 he goes in. I think he made the first 3 of the game.
Yeah, he did. But did you? And I tweeted, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I did see that, yes. He only shot 1 more, so.
One more day he did not need to shoot.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
So, oh well, but it is what it is. That's a whole nother deal. But Indiana had a lot of positives out of last night's game, but like I said, they were not pushed. That team, the Nebraska team, they're solid. I guess they're going to win some games at home, but how they did to Creighton, what they did. Well, you brought up all the numbers. Creighton I didn't go look at the game, but Creighton just must have been horrible in that game. They must have just had a bad game because that Nebraska team does not have a star. They don't have a star.
They don't, but they were also without their second leading scorer. Sam Griesel was out. And I understand Jalen Hood-Schifino also out, so that kind of levels that off. But they could have probably been a little bit more productive on the offensive end. But it was very I don't even know what the word would be to describe their offense. It was just very I've been saying this phrase a lot these past couple of days, just out of sorts. I don't know a better way to do it. Didn't look like they had much of a mission. Now, when they got the ball inside to Walker, at times he looked like he was on a mission. I thought he did some good things, but I mean, there were times they would shoot with like 3 seconds into the shot clock. I just didn't understand the quick shooting. When they moved the ball around, they were able to do some good things against Indiana. They just didn't do it frequently enough. So, yeah, it was a little jarring. Obviously, Creighton didn't play very well. But factor in the fact that Sam Griesel was out. That probably had a little bit of something to do with the fact that Nebraska's offense didn't look very good. And I believe that was like a last second. I think he got sick the day of the game. So they didn't even have time to adjust without him until game day.
Trace Jackson-Davis had a great night last night, and he's had plenty of those this season over his career. But it wasn't because he was scoring 30 points. It was because he was a complete part of the game. 12 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, triple-double. Only the third ever in the history of Indiana basketball, by the way, which is still shocking to me.
That's wild.
But, well, they didn't really used to keep track of that stuff back in the day, and people didn't push for it. And but, yeah, it is what it is. But another great spot for Trace Jackson-Davis to etch his name into the Indiana basketball history books. Yeah.
And then we talked about the poor bench performance against Rutgers, and then didn't get a ton of production. Malik Reneau only got 11 minutes, scored 4 points, but you got Tamar Bates coming off the bench with 19 points. So I know they didn't get a lot in terms of a lot of other guys. Part of that's because, again, Trey Galloway is starting these past couple games, but for him to come on, step up, hit 5 3-pointers in that game, man, that's the kind of depth we were talking about. To have somebody come in off the bench and be a spark, he provided that for Indiana last night. So that's some of the things we criticized Indiana for on Saturday against Rutgers. It was nice to see them kind of take that and bounce back and get a big win heading into these next couple games where they've got Arizona and Kansas. You're going to be away from home. Now you got a little bit of momentum. You got a little bit of comfort. You're right, Jim. The key is going to be is JHS going to play, or is he going to be on the bench? Because that's going to make a huge difference these next couple games.
Yeah. Looking at last night's box score for the game, Xavier Johnson, 4 points, 2 of 8 shooting. Not a great night for him, but again, that's because he had 4 assists, 1 rebound. Oh, yeah, he only had 2 personal fouls, but 7 turnovers. He had half of the team's turnovers. That's what is that right there shows you a little bit of discombobulation with the Indiana offense. He was playing at a very, very high level with alongside of Jalen Hood-Schifino. And although Trey Galloway had a career night scoring and shooting, he was 7 of 10 overall, by the way, folks. That's 70%. 70% from the field. 4 of 6 from behind the arc. 66%. So that's lights out shooting, by the way. And you got to, first of all, I got to get up to Trey Galloway. He worked his ass off over the summer on the shooter. He was not known as a shooter, but he worked and worked and worked and worked. And now you can see that's work paying off right there.
Well, and I think I'm wondering too if there was a conversation, and maybe Mike Woodson said this and I missed it, but he only took 3 shots against Rutgers. They can't have him, if he's going to be in a starting role, he can't be hesitant, because there's going to be times in that offense when he's wide open, and he needs to be comfortable taking those shots. In the Rutgers game, I just don't think he was comfortable shooting the basketball. And then maybe it's a home versus road thing. Maybe it was just the fact that he was starting for the first time this season against Rutgers, but he looked way more comfortable. He was aggressive at times. There was a time, I mean, to hit that step back jumper in the second half, that was about as smooth of a shot as you could imagine. Took advantage. He got going early, and that might be a difference too. The fact that he was able to hit, I don't know if he made the first bucket or he made an early basket for Indiana. And so maybe that got his confidence rolling. I don't know what the case was, but he looked way more comfortable being I don't want to say a focal part of the offense, but he looked way more comfortable at least shooting, saying, you know what, I need to step up and make some plays here with the ball in his hands. So it would be interesting to know if there was some sort of conversation that was happening there, but he just looked way more aggressive and more comfortable shooting last night than he did at any point in that Rutgers game.
Another great thing about, or a great thing, a positive thing about Jalen Hood-Schifino missing a little bit. Hopefully he's back for that Arizona game. I'd like to see that be as good a game as possible. But Trey Galloway getting invaluable minutes playing right now. Invaluable. Being forced into the situation he's being forced in puts a little more pressure on him, which is good because that makes you grow. Tamar Bates also. These 19 points for him last night.
Yeah.
39 points between these two guys.
Basically half.
Bench players. These guys are guys that come off the bench, both of them. Although Trey Galloway started last night, normally a bench player. When you have this kind of this is the kind of production that Indiana has to have to be an elite team. When you get Jalen Hood-Schifino back, you've got to have this to be elite. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, teams don't have that. Look at North Carolina. That's why they have fallen off the face of the planet. They've got five players, basically. Well, you can't play with 5 players. I don't care how damn good they are. You've got the best player in the country, apparently, with Armando Bacot. What good is that doing you? None. So, looks like we got to take a break. Lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. Brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality and the Wild Club, places like BB's Market, your butcher, baker, custom meats, whatever you need. Make sure you stop by and visit them. And go to the Endeavor Hospitality Wild Club. Sign up, start earning Wild rewards today. They're a proud sponsor by IU Athletics. Andy Moore Honda as well. Make sure you reach out. Best selection prices on new and used vehicles. AndyMooreHonda.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Holy good God almighty. That's 3 effing straight guests canceled.
What happened now?
3 days of guest Actually, you can, if you want to go back from Monday to yesterday to the post-game show and to now, it's a total of 7 people.
Shitty week.
Total of 7 people doing that. But I mean,
who's out?
Matt Taylor.
Oh, well, the Colts are on a bye, and they also are not good. So,
yeah,
I know, but had I known that,
I just wish. My thing is, I wish people would tell me before
the show,
20 minutes before they come on.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's not the only one who does that, so I'm not just singling out him.
That's all good. We got it covered.
Just in case he happens to be listening. I don't want to make it seem like he's a bad human being.
No, it's not. No,
he's a lovely human being.
He's a lovely human being. Yes.
I'm talking about the situation in general.
Right. You can love the person and hate the situation.
John, tell me.
I love Mike Leach.
John, tell me the clips you have.
Oh, right now I'm working on trying to get them downloaded because right now my computer is acting silly, but I'm trying to get them. I'll have them here in about hopefully 20 to 30 minutes.
We'll need them all.
No worries. We'll get I'll get at least one from each person. And if is there anything specifically interesting or just kind of different stuff?
Did I send you the
No.
It's Ships Ahoy. God dang it. Here comes a transcript for both of them.
Cool.
God damn it. You gotta do it one at a time. Forward.
Yeah, that might be a record in terms of I would say last week we had a record for most spontaneous guests appearances, and this might be the opposite record.
Well, that's what happens when you don't have great. I should have lined up other guests. Damn. I thought it was a busy week, though, and didn't need to.
I mean, it is a busy week. It's just a matter of everybody else is busy, apparently.
I hope everybody on ISB, all the viewers, like my medium shirt here. It's very uncomfortable.
Well, we need to talk about that next.
All right, here we go.
In Limestone, with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious, 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Thursday, December 8th, baby. Kind of slid into December. It's not been terrible. We haven't, weather hasn't been bad. No response to that. Oh, I forgot you don't know anything about weather. You're in Florida.
Exactly. It's just 100 degrees all the time. You know what we haven't talked about yet is how about Jeff Brom taking the job at Louisville?
Oh my goodness. How in the world? That escaped us because that happened all during yesterday. So, yep, Purdue now looking for a football coach. The change over in the Big Ten West. I was thinking about that. Wisconsin, new coach. Illinois, new coach.
Nope.
Well, I meant last year they had a new coach.
Yes, true. Yeah, okay.
Relative.
Yes.
Relative. You've got a new face at Illinois, new face at going to have a new face at Purdue. You've got
Nebraska.
Nebraska, Hayden Fry. Oh my God.
Kirk Ferentz.
Kirk Ferentz at Iowa and PJ Fleck at Minnesota. Are they the two longest I know that
No, Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald at
Northwestern.
He's,
forgot about him.
He's second. Behind Ferentz.
Hell, he's second in the Big Ten. Those are the two longest tenured coaches in the Big Ten, I believe.
Yep, you're right.
Period. But then, you're going to have a whole lot of new faces on the other side of things, which is kind of apropos. You've got lots of new changes coming because the divisions are apparently going away. UCLA, USC joining in. So a lot of changes. Indiana football kind of in a spin cycle, I guess you'd say.
They are. And Tom Allen, let me tell you, there's no better time for him to strike than right now when Purdue is in limbo. And we don't know who they're going to hire. I've seen a lot of lists, a lot of bad names on those lists. Not going to call anybody out. But
strike for what? Recruiting?
Recruiting, yes. Because there's going to be a lot of kids that are going to decommit.
What's your selling point? I want to hear this.
Well,
give me your pitch, baby.
I have a pitch.
I want to hear the pitch.
I could give you the pitch that I gave Mitchell Page a few weeks ago on the podcast.
Let's find that. Should we pull that up and play that for old Jimbo? I don't know that he's heard this before.
If he hasn't heard it, we should play it. Absolutely.
It's about 3 minutes long. Do you want to do this here? I've got it right here if you want to do it.
You can go right ahead.
This was
all right.
I'll set it up. This was designed to re-recruit Mitchell Page to Indiana.
All right, Mitchell. Coach here. Look, I got a lot going on today, so I'm just going to make this pitch real nice and easy for you today, okay? By the end of this, you're going to be signing that national letter of intent on the dotted line. First of all, you might be asking yourself, why does he have a southern accent? Number one, it's the accent of winners, and number two, I really like it. So, 3 things stood out to me when I was watching your film, son. Size, athleticism, and your darn name. First of all, pretty small, so I don't think the defenders are going to be able to see you when you got the ball in your hands. Advantage, Indiana Hoosiers. Athleticism, I saw some of that speed. You're as quick as a hiccup, son. And then the name. I mean, just so many great things about that name. First off, you may not have known this, but the former governor of Indiana was a Mitchell. Mitch Daniels. Maybe you could get a nickname here at Indiana in Bloomington. Mitch the Governor Page. He's the president at Purdue. Well, why didn't somebody tell me these things before I start these videos? I don't know how to delete it. All right, forget I said that. No, you know what, Mitchell the Governor Page still sounds good. Another thing I like, do you know where Indiana plays? Memorial Stadium. You know what we call that here in Bloomington? The Rock. That's right, yeah, the Rock. You know what a page is usually made out of? Paper, right? Rock, paper. So I'm going with this? Rock, paper, Mitchell. Now, ironically, there was a guy also named Mitchell Page who played here a couple of years ago, and I got to be honest with you, one of the stars of this team, catching touchdown passes against Michigan State. Roll film.
Second down. Open look at Page. Touchdown, Indiana.
Taking it to the house against Purdue. Roll film.
Third down. 3rd and 11. Sudfeld looking for Page, and he's got it. What a catch! Touchdown, Indiana!
Returning damn punts against the damn University of Michigan. Roll damn film.
And we'll see where field position ends up for Indiana. A kick to midfield. Returnable for Mitchell Page. Looking for room. Keeping it alive. Breaking tackles! Mitchell Page down the sideline! Touchdown!
That could be you, Mitchell. That could be you. You could be Mitchell Page, part 2. And I'm also going to level with you. We are not very good at the wide receiver position right now, and we desperately need anybody that knows how to catch a pass. I'm going to level with you. We don't have receivers on this team. I don't know they can catch Cole right now. And we still got one damn goal in mind here at Indiana. I mean, yeah, this one is from when Ohio State won it, one of the 300 times they won it. So I don't have a hat with Indiana, but that's why you're coming here, because we need you to win that Big Ten championship, son. So, Mitchell, I hope you'll consider Indiana University and write your own page in the history of Hoosier football.
Oh man, that was tremendous. I give that an A+. That was absolutely several comments. That was awesome. Oh shoot! I almost did the grand faux pas 2 days in a row, spilling coffee. I got so excited. That was incredible. First of all, my first question is, why have we not had more content like this? That's must-see TV right there, or must-hear radio. The OSU hat. Why do you have one?
So I don't know if I'm going to explain this so very well. So someone I know attended the Big Ten championship game several years ago.
That's all we need to hear. That's quick. Boom. No one cares about it. That's enough.
Nobody cares.
The Southern accent. So where were you recruiting him to? Or were you doing your best Brian Kelly?
Yeah, that was, it was kind of a play on Brian Kelly. It seemed like the Southern accent seems to draw in recruits pretty well. So I thought, why not? I'll make up a fake accent. Mine's way better than Brian Kelly's, by the way.
I like it was funny, and you gave a little more commitment than like it's a little Joey Molinaro-esque, but much more a deeper dive with the video backup perfectly. That's A+. What a man. We need more of that.
I think Tom Allen should hire me to be a recruiting guy. I'll just use that. Everybody's going to come to Indiana.
Why don't we just have you as a comedian instead?
Okay, that'll work. I don't know. I'm not good at either one of those things. So
yeah, but you probably got a
better shot.
A lot more job security.
That's true.
Here.
That's true. Yeah, it was fun to make. Mitchell gave me the task. I put it off for a couple weeks, and then I decided I was going to go all in on it. So he was expecting like a 15-second pitch. I went 3 minutes.
I thought it was excellent. That was tremendous. That was very, very entertaining. Yeah, that's funny stuff, man. So we have to have that like once a week. Something.
Somebody's got to give me some ideas, because I'm not creative in that sense. So if somebody can come up with ideas, I'll be more than happy to try to give it my best shot. I've done some beer reviews in the past, and I did one for Halloween costumes a while ago. This was probably some of my best work, not to pat myself on the back.
Incredible. Good stuff, man. I can't believe you guys. How long has that been out? How long you've been holding
probably a month, Mitchell.
That was who were we previewing that week? It was one of the last few games.
I think it was either before Michigan State or who'd they play before Michigan State. It was one of those last
Ohio
2 or
State.
3 games.
It was Ohio State. That's why you had the Ohio State hat on, because we were talking about that stuff.
Yeah. So it was one of the last 3 weeks of the season. So, but it's not been out terribly long.
I'm just looking at some of these comments, and
a lot of people like the size of my shirt here. Look, this used to be a lot bigger, and then it went through one wash cycle, and all of a sudden it's a medium.
Don't you have like a 10-year-old nephew you can give that to?
I'm sure I could give it to somebody. This was high dollar though on what's that website called? I can't remember the name of it. It's got all the sports clothes.
I don't know, but I can tell you who can buy all the sports clothes in the world. Aaron Judge.
Oh yeah.
$360 million deal to stay with the Yankees. First of all, how did anybody ever think that he was not going to stay in New York? It cracks me up. I wasn't even following along, and I'd be like, well, he's talking to the Giants, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't follow baseball closely right now because of other things, obviously, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure that the New York Yankees still have more money than God, and how that's not going to happen is beyond me.
Correct.
And boom.
Well,
and that's exactly what happened.
Talk about betting on yourself. So one of the reasons why some people thought he might leave, there was a report that he did sign with San Francisco. Obviously, that turned out to be false. But one of the reasons people thought he might leave is because before the start of the 2022 season, the Yankees offered him 7 years at $213 million, I believe. So he got 2 more years and $145 million more dollars. That's betting on yourself.
Well, why would he not? He's a giant. He's not right. He's too big. He's a big human, man.
Yeah.
Big human. Let's see. We've got a trip coming up to Las Vegas this weekend. Indiana taking on Arizona out in the desert on Saturday at 4:30 Eastern time. What is that? 1:30 out there?
Yep.
Wait, is it 4:30? What is the game here? Is it 4:30 out? I think it might be 4:30 in Las Vegas, actually.
That's a good question. I have not. I like that we talked about how you don't like when people ask you what time the game starts, and then we're asking what time the game starts.
Well, I mean, but I'll ask myself and I'll look it up.
Right. It is 7:30 here, so it's going to be 4:30.
Yeah,
Vegas time.
Okay. Let's make it. Yeah, it's out there. So just double checking on that, which will be. I'd say it would be nice, but there's not much difference because your body's going to be so jacked up by then,
right.
With the hour changes. Jalen Hood-Schifino, no idea if he's going to play or not, but it's certainly, for me, I don't know how Indiana could win against Arizona without him. Well, I shouldn't say anything can happen. If they played like they did last night, but there's a reason they didn't play the same last night as they did against Rutgers.
Right.
Rutgers played much better than Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
They played harder. They made things difficult. They forced Indiana to do things that Nebraska didn't. Indiana also shot the ball a lot better. They rebounded the ball way better. You want to look at the stats, talk about a stats turnaround. It was that one. Rebounding, they got crushed in rebounds at Rutgers. And then yesterday, it was there's a bigger disparity until toward the end when they let Nebraska make a little bit of a run. Ended up being 35-25 overall. But it was bigger than that. For a while. Indiana had a 21-point lead with 6 minutes to go in the game, I think, and they let them make a little run, got a little closer, knocked some stats down a little bit, but other than that, a great night by, like I said, Tamar Bates. This is not the first. This is the second bigger game he's had. Yeah. So there it shows that he is coming on. Trey Galloway. Really growing in his role. Trace Jackson-Davis, he is what he is, man. Race Thompson, a little bit, he redeemed himself a little bit last night. He 9-6. Not a bad night. Been cool if he'd have got that extra point. That would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would have made the fifth player in double figures for Indiana. They had 4 others with Bates, Galloway, Miller, Kopp, 6 of 11 shooting. You're going to take that. The only bad thing is he was 1 of 5 behind the arc last night. 1 of 5.
Yeah.
But as a team, Indiana was 11 of 25. They shot 25 3-pointers and hit 44%.
Yep. That's huge.
44%. That's hell yes, it is. That's I don't know. That could be 7% above the national average. And when you put up 25 and hit that percentage, some bad things are going to happen to the other team.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. You want to talk about how you can win a big time game without Jalen Hood-Schifino on the floor. It's being able to knock down the open 3 ball, and then you can't have Xavier Johnson's got to play a little bit more in control. He doesn't need to score 30 points for them to win. He also cannot have 7 turnovers.
I think he ought to make no. And he has been extraordinarily frustrated these last 2 games. Well, yes. Not so much this game, last game really, but to be good, this is what they have to do. To be elite, they have to do this with Jalen Hood-Schifino in the lineup.
Right.
You've got to have those 5 guys plus Tamar Bates, plus Trey Galloway doing this. Tamar Bates is doing it off the bench still. Right. So he's in that role. He's in that flow, that rhythm right now. Trey Galloway is going to have to adjust back to that, but he needs to be able to bring the same level of production off the bench that he does from the starting position. That's what will make. That's the difference between this team being an elite team, a Final Four team, and not.
Right.
And that's, again, I know there are some people who go, oh no, they don't. They deem truth as criticism. No, it's not criticism. It's truth, man. This is again, for those. This is a radio show. This is not a fan show. Yes, we cover IU. The Big Ten for the main part, but we're not an IU fan show. You guys have to understand that. So I'm going to tell you the truth. And so is Dustin or anybody else. But this is a good a team that is showing how good they can be. And like I said, I think these early season deals with Trace Jackson Davis being out, that forced a little bit. Then you've got Jalen Hood-Schifino out a little bit. It just keeps forcing the learning curve up. One guy who seemed like he's, I don't want to say plateaued for the moment, but for lack of a better word, plateaued for the moment. John, are you telling me we need to take a break? Is Malik Renew? We'll talk about that more later. Looks like it is time to take a break, so we'll do that. I don't want to get caught up. Hey, don't forget about our friends from Go Team. They are a great part of the Endeavor Wow Club. Make sure you go there and sign up for the Wow Club. Start earning Wow rewards today. But don't forget, Go Team, for those that are on the go, whether it's your kids, your team, yourself. It's hard to find fresh, tasty food that's convenient on the fly. Go Team created for the go-getters like you. Just go to GoTeamBites.com or pick them up at BB's Market. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
I've got a couple of the clips already, and I'm sure I know you were at the press conference last night, but I caught Trace's his word.
Wizard?
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz or whatever it was.
Right off the bat.
Did he say Wizard of Oz? Or was it just
he said
Wizard?
it second, right?
He said both of them.
Almost like the Wizard of Oz.
Okay, I saw the first part.
He said my teammates were telling me that I was playing like a wizard out there, like the Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
That's when I knew. I was like, yeah, that was his word.
Instantly. I'm like, oh, well, got that one out of the way early, and I sent a tweet out.
Yeah, I saw Jim's tweet. But I didn't see the second part of it.
It's almost
so
now that the secret's out, to me, it's stupid for them to do this.
Oh no! I think
they've got to get more creative with it, though. I think they need to be more creative in terms of how they work it in. Like, don't just do it at the very beginning.
See, I think instead of using words like wizard, use words like capitulate.
Yes, see, that would be funny. But you have to know what it is. They probably tell them after the game, based on if they win or lose, and so they probably can't think of a good one.
Give them a word they don't know, and maybe
I'm sure they didn't do it after the Rutgers game. They probably won't do it after losses.
That's what I'm saying. That's probably why they hold off on it until after the game, so they can't look it up and figure out what it means. Because Miller Kopp went to Northwestern. I'm sure he's got a pretty strong vocabulary there.
So speaking of the clips, I've got that one. I've got Mike Woodson. I haven't gotten Trey Galloway yet, but I can work on that here in a little bit.
Yeah, at the end of the presser, he screamed something out.
Trey Galloway?
Yeah.
I'll look for that then.
But it's nothing big. I'm just saying that must have been his word that he forgot.
Oh. Oh yeah, I was gonna see where our subscriber count is since I made that comment yesterday about getting us to 3,000 before Friday. Where are we at here? Where can I check that at right now? Hold on. How much time do I have?
Well, Arkansas lost.
One of their main players is out for the season. I saw though.
Yeah. Crushing blow for Arkansas.
All right, we need 52 more subscribers in 2 days. Let's do it, folks. If you're not subscribed, get us there.
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
Coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast, Market, and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Thursday as we are heading down towards the end of this December 8th week. Jim Coyle with you, Dustin Schutte as well from Outsider.com. Lots of stuff going on. Purdue's looking for a football coach. The NCAA Transformation Committee to submit recommendations for D1 changes by July. I'm trying to find out what all these different changes are. And NCAA is trying to keep themselves together. Basically.
Yeah.
Because they work at the leisure of the schools.
Right.
And they just became almost a mockery of themselves.
Well, and now with NIL and the transfer portal and all these restrictions and rules being lifted or changed.
Well, it's kind of hard to lean back against an organization like that who, for every day of every month of every year for the last damn coffee's got to go. Fought it right tooth and nail to the end, and now you're going to govern it?
Right.
You're going to govern it?
Well, that's what I think is going to happen. At this point, the NCAA is trying to figure this stuff out on the run, but I think a lot of schools are saying, you know what, we'll just figure it out ourselves, or we will work with the teams in our conference, which would make a lot more sense.
The conferences.
Yes.
It's the conferences,
now,
especially conferences like the SEC.
Yes. I was going to say
who wants to ramrod everything because, again, I know that Indiana fans don't get this, but football is the engine that drives the train in collegiate sports. Period. End of story. Stop the motion.
And I think
the NCAA tournament is great, but NCAA football is the engine that drives the train.
And I think what needs to happen, because I don't foresee the NCAA, unless there's some sort of major change, lasting all that much longer. Now, whether that's 3 years or whether it's 15, I don't know, but at some point it's going to come crashing down. What needs to happen, though, is there does need to be some sort of ruling, governing body that makes it an equal playing field for all of the conferences, because you could have the Big Ten doing one thing, the SEC doing something completely different, the Pac-12 doing their own thing, and it would just be a complete nightmare. So you're going to have some sort of standard operating procedure that every conference is on. But as we've seen in the past, that doesn't even apply in football right now, because you've got some conferences with divisions. You got some conferences playing without divisions. You got some conferences playing 9 conference games. You got some leagues playing 8 conference games. So I just want to see uniformity across. Primarily, the issue is in football. It's not really in any other sport. But on the football side, you've got to have some sort of parity in terms of the rules you're playing by, the number of games you're playing. What are some of the rules? Because that's where the biggest differences are. Will we ever see that? I have no idea. But that's, in my opinion, what needs to happen.
Yes, looking forward to it. Let's see. Oh, Deion Sanders to Colorado.
Yep.
A lot of talk about this for 2 reasons. Number one, he's only been there, 2 years?
Jackson State, 3 years.
3 years. Said he was asked why initially. He was called by God. And then a writer said, well, I guess God wants 10% more of how much is he getting paid at Colorado?
Well, I don't know because they don't have the money.
Well, they've got more money than Jackson State because he was
They
making
do.
like $300,000 there.
I want to say it was like, I don't want to miss. I thought it was like $6 million, but I could be wrong on that.
And it cannot be about the money. Surely Deion Sanders doesn't need the money, right?
No, he doesn't need the money.
I mean, so yeah, I think this was more about two things. A, he wants to give his son a legitimate shot at the Heisman.
Yeah, that's fair.
That was not going to happen at Jackson State. I don't care what the hell they did.
Right.
Was not going to happen there. He's at a Power 5 school now in the Pac-12, so
yep.
He'll be playing against teams on national TV a little more frequently, possibly. And with Deion lending his name there, that adds to that possibility. Yep. But, you know, I don't know. He did a lot for HBCUs in my mind by being there. But by not being there, to me now, he sounds kind of like the dude that Eddie Robinson described as being not SWAC, man. He's not SWAC. He ain't SWAC. Well, he's Pac. He's not SWAC. He's Pac.
He did pack up for Boulder. But I agree with you. I think he did a lot for HBCUs. He put a lot of attention on HBCUs and their football programs and the tradition and the history. And he wasn't going to be there forever. If you're a good coach, you deserve another opportunity no matter where it's at. And so I think what he did was he put light on that. And that, look, whether I don't understand why people are not arguing, but are kind of criticizing Deion for the move. He left Jackson State in a much better position than they were in beforehand, and he put the conference and HBCUs
without him. That's because he was there. Jackson
but it elevates
Jackson State without Deion Sanders.
But it elevates the program, and it elevates.
He was there. I think it goes back to being what they were.
I don't think it will. I think more people are going to start paying attention. Now it's going to become more, those jobs are going to become more attractive because Deion took it. And then look what he was able to do. If you are successful, somebody can go into an HBCU, be successful, and then go get another job. Now, maybe nobody takes the leap from HBCU to Power 5, but maybe HBCU to G5 to Power 5. So I think the positives outweigh the negatives. Is it going to hurt Jackson State that he's not there anymore? Probably. Absolutely. I mean, you're not going to have a former NFL legend, Hall of Famer on the sidelines. Absolutely. But it's also the regression is going to be way less than where it was before, if that makes any sense. Like they took 8 steps forward. They're going to take what? Like 2 or 3 steps back, in my opinion.
I believe you.
All right.
Sounds good. I'm just trying to look back over some of the comments we missed from earlier. Rudy says, if I'm Purdue, I'm offering Urban Meyer a lifetime contract at whatever price he demands. Purdue is just not sexy enough for Urban Meyer.
You know what I would do? I put this out on Twitter. There are 3 people I would go after. There are 3 people I'd go after. One of them I'd really like.
First of all, I believe it was you that I mentioned this very thing to, and you said Kalen DeBoer was not leaving Washington.
I did say that, but now I would throw Big Ten. I would throw Big Ten money at him. He's not. I don't think he's leaving.
What do you think I was talking about? Throwing at him. The hell? I mean, no. Yeah, that would be pretty devastating for Indiana. That won't happen. Michael Penix is coming back to Washington next year.
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer was just extended. He's not leaving. Where does Purdue go? That's a great question, though. Who do they turn to?
There's been some names.
It's not going to be Deion Sanders.
No, it's
what
not.
Would that have been like?
Sanders. That would have
been a hell of a move for Deion.
Yes.
That would have been smart. He would have got money. The cradle of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
His son, Pure.
I think there's a chance that Jim Leonard, the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, who said he was going to stay at Wisconsin and decided, nah, I'm out after the bowl game. I would look at Gus Malzahn, former Auburn coach, currently at UCF. I think he's got the kind of offensive mind that Purdue likes.
Yeah,
Dan Mullen.
I forgot to mention that. That was where'd you get that line? Quick as a hiccup.
I think it was in The Blind Side. Is where I first heard the movie.
Please continue.
I think Dan Mullen could be an interesting option. Former Mississippi State Florida head coach. He's been at ESPN for a year. You're not going to have the same expectations and ridiculous fan base at Purdue as you're going to have pretty much anywhere in the SEC. So I think that might be a comfortable move for him. So what's this say? Dustin will eventually fit that shirt if he tries to live off his comedy. That's a good point. Good point. I think there's a lot of options out there. I think Purdue's not gonna. They'll throw a lot of money at whoever it is, and I think the one thing you can say is that Jeff Brom didn't leave Purdue because of the money. Purdue was going to be willing to match or exceed any offer. Louisville.
This had nothing to do.
It was all about family. Yesterday. It was about his family, and it was about probably, in my opinion, having a better shot to win a conference championship and get to the college football playoff at Louisville than he does in the Big Ten at Purdue.
I didn't send this out, but I wrote something yesterday that said exactly that. This had nothing to do with money. As a matter of fact, he left money on the table. He left money on the table at Purdue where they would have re-upped him with a nice raise, especially, again, with the Big Ten bump in money coming.
Yep.
Louisville cannot come close to that. Louisville can't pay him what Purdue is paying him at all. But Purdue can't offer what Louisville can. Home, sweet home. And I'm not talking about a place you spent a couple years. I'm talking about where he went to grade school. I'm talking about where his dad was a longtime successful high school coach in the city. I'm talking about his dad played quarterback at Louisville. Jeff Brom played quarterback at Louisville. His brother was a receiver that he threw to at Louisville. His younger brother was a quarterback at Louisville. Do I need to continue to go on? It's just there. That opportunity never happens in sports. I talked about this. How often is it that a coach can really go home? Yeah. And I mean, this is a guy who has those two guys on his staff, Greg Brom, Brian Brom, both on his staff as well. So all of them going home. I mean, I'm talking about your middle school friends home, Sunday, mom's Sunday cooking home.
Right.
And they need you. The school needs you.
Yeah. And I think what's also interesting about this whole thing was you said you don't get that opportunity very often. You certainly don't get that opportunity twice. He passed it up once after 2018, stuck at Purdue, and then 4 years later, he's getting the opportunity again. So you can't knock him. He left Purdue in a much better spot than where he found it. And he stuck around when he didn't have to. So the one interesting thing to me is, though, Brian Brom is he's the interim coach for the bowl game. That's very interesting to me.
It's very interesting to me. Yeah, that doesn't happen very often.
No.
That's another. But I get it because it's a long time out. When does that game? When do they play?
I think is it January 2nd, 1st or 2nd? I think is that game, the Citrus Bowl in Orlando.
That's only 3 weeks though, so
right.
It's a lot to get done, but it's more about recruiting.
Yeah, it is about recruiting, but if he's taking Brian, I mean, I understand you can't uplift or uproot the entire staff right now, but for Brian Brom to be the interim head coach, and I don't know how much recruiting they're going to get done. So
it's time. John's telling us we got to take a break. We got lots more to get to, including talking about last night's game with Kyler Staley from thehoosier.com. We're brought to you by Barbara Pop Real Estate Services. They have served Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Scott counties in southern Indiana, Louisville, all down through there for 3 decades. If you're in the market for a home down there, reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com, or my man Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapop.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore.
I tell you, the number one thing I hate about Jeff Brom being in Louisville now is just the timing of it, because Indiana starts their series with Louisville next year, their 3-game series. And Jeff Brom knows everything about Indiana.
That's true. He does. That is a
What
great
is there?
point.
What is there to know about Indiana that someone doesn't need to know?
Well, he
Also a
coached
fair
against them, is
point.
my point.
Will Indiana have a team to field next year is the biggest question. That should be the
10
concern.
guys.
That should be.
I think it's just going to be transfer portal heaven for Indiana is what it's going to
Yes.
have to be. They're going to have to take whoever the hell they can get.
Who in the fuck is coming to Indiana?
See, you say this isn't a fan show, but that's a fan comment right there.
No, it's not. It's a fucking truthful comment. Why would you
Well,
come to?
here's
a
the thing:
school that-
they're not the team with the most players in the portal right now, so it's not the worst situation right now in terms of people leaving. You'd think it'd be much worse.
Here's
John,
okay.
Let me ask. Hold on.
Okay.
The team that was going to have the least amount of players in the portal is probably going to be one of the least successful teams, because that means you don't have a ton of talent, to go with places. It's not like team is not that they don't have good players. They do, but they're not chock full of them. Be going everywhere like they were a couple of years ago, or they would be.
This would be how I would measure it, as in terms of not necessarily the most players, but how much production is leaving. I legitimately don't know that answer, but I've got to think that a lot of Indiana's production, Dason McCullough alone might make up 50%
that's the
of
biggest
Indiana's
loss.
production.
AJ Barner's a pretty big loss.
Right.
And I think the biggest loss is not even.
You lost your All-American kicker.
He was. I mean, that's a
kicker.
loss, but he's been
Our
a lot
kicker.
more
You lost a
inconsistent than
freaking
he has been.
kicker.
Oh,
Who
that's
loses
not as
kickers?
uncommon as you think it is.
Kyler's just along for the ride.
Hey guys, morning.
Good morning.
John, thanks for the graphic for our wrap-up show.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Looks awesome. A lot more professional. Alex said he was tired of seeing our faces on the website.
That's why he picked up photos that don't have Keegan's face on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And well, that's also, Keegan would always pick the worst picture of me to post on the thumbnail.
He does that on purpose.
He does.
Here's the thing. My last comment about the football, and then I'll shut up, obviously, because we're coming back.
Boy,
from
you
break.
knew he's going to sneak that in, didn't you?
No, I have to. If the fact that there is a transfer portal is what gives me hope for next year. If there wasn't, I would have zero hope for next year.
That's fair.
With that being said, here we go.
Simplest and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Speed Radio, coming to you here on this Thursday. Jim Coyle alongside Dustin Schutte, joined now by Kyler Staley from thehoosier.com. Kyler was at the game last night as well. One thing I saw from start to finish, Indiana was never pushed by Nebraska. Not one time. Not at one time did I think that Nebraska was, oh man, this is going to be a game. Now they got it to single digits once in the second half, but that was as close as they got. And it was just, you never felt that the Indiana was ever really in any trouble of this game getting away from them. I didn't think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, the turnover situation. I mean, any other team that's not Nebraska, if that's an Ohio State, Arizona, whoever, a better team, they're going to take advantage of those turnovers. So Indiana got very, very lucky in that end. But yeah, I agree with you. You never thought that the game was in jeopardy, even though when they did go to single digits, you knew somebody was going to make a play. Usually it was either Trace Jackson Davis or Trey Galloway, both who had phenomenal games. Throw in Miller Kopp and Tamar Bates, who also were big contributors last night, leading Indiana to win. But Indiana just came out with a lot more fire than they did at Rutgers. They came out with energy. They played fast, maybe just a little bit too fast at times. But the most important thing is that they brought their toughness back. That defense was really locked down last night, I thought. And they got their first win of the Big Ten season. So, a little bit momentum heading into this weekend.
Kyler, last night, Trey, Reggie Miller, Galloway really stepped up and played a lot better than he did against Rutgers. But the thing that stood out to me was not necessarily that he set a career high for his point total, but the fact that he looked more comfortable shooting the basketball than he did a few days ago at Rutgers. Was there any sort of conversation about Trey being a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident? Because I didn't think in the Rutgers game he just looked out of place. Maybe that was because he got his first start of the season. He was trying to mesh with that starting rotation. He looked a lot more comfortable. He was a little bit more aggressive with the ball, not just settling for threes, but he drove to the basket a few times. Was there some sort of conversation, or was there some sort of initiative there for him to take more advantage and be more comfortable shooting the ball? Or was it just a circumstance where Nebraska maybe played off of him a little bit more and gave him more opportunities, and then his confidence built?
Well, a few things here. One, just for him playing a lot more comfortable. You go back to the Rutgers game, that Jalen Hood-Schifino injury, that was a last-second thing. Jalen Hood-Schifino was warming up before the game, and he just couldn't go. So, Trey's gets thrown in there, not really prepared. So Trey had a few more days to kind of prepare for this role to do so. But as far as his shooting, we talked to him after the game in the press conference. He said with his groin injury over the summer, all he could do was shoot. So it was just nonstop, steady repetition with him. And it was every day. I mean, he missed most of the summer. So every day you add in 60 plus days there of him just, shooting the basketball, just working on his form, working on his confidence. And Trey Galloway's played with a ton of confidence this year already. And I mean, his 3-point shot looks good. Like, you actually feel as a fan, you actually feel like he has a shot to make those shots. Last night, I mean, there was just a game where he was feeling himself. I mean, 4 of 6 from the 3. I mean, big reason why Indiana shot 44%. He played great, and that's good to see from Trey. Hopefully he can carry that momentum and everything once he goes back to his bench role. Because he does need to, I mean, not to say he needs to go to the bench, but Indiana's bench does need him in a way. They are missing that part of him. I mean, that's one less bench guy that Woodson has to, play. So we'll see there. But overall, Trey Galloway was, other than Trace Jackson Davis was this triple double, I would say Trey Galloway was the MVP of the night last night.
Yeah, and it's the fact that he does that a game after going scoreless in 31 minutes of action. It shows how different nights, different games, different guys can and will step up. And I talked earlier about how invaluable these minutes are for Trey Galloway and Tamar. Tamar getting maybe a few more minutes because of this situation now than he normally has. But both of them have been playing at a higher and higher level. And that's what's needed for this team to be Final Four good. I saw someone earlier say this is not a Final Four team. No, not right now. It's not. I agree with that. Until they can consistently shoot the ball and not turn the ball over, they're not a Final Four team. But having these guys forced to play these extra minutes in November and early December is going to pay great dividends come February and March.
Yeah, I mean, the depth of Indiana, that is the advantage there for Mike Woodson and his staff. With Trey having to be inserted, it lessened to 8 players. I thought maybe last night you see a little bit more of CJ Gunn, but he stuck with the 8 main guys that are kind of running that, and they did fine. Obviously, there was a spell where Xavier Johnson picked up 2 fouls, so he had to hit the bench, and he struggled last night. Everyone knows about that. But I thought Tamar Bates and Trey Galloway did a really good job interchanging, running the I guess you would say the second unit with that. Both guys, Mike Woodson's very comfortable, and a lot of his guards, to run that point guard position. And they kind of proved it last night. Like I said, Trey Galloway, Tamar Bates, they showed that they can run an offense, and they did so very well, especially Trey Galloway.
And I thought these last two games, I don't want to harp on it too much because we're still early in the season. We're only, 9 games into the season. So, but the last two games, Xavier Johnson has not played well. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well against Rutgers. And then last night I think he counted for 7 turnovers if you count those 2 fouls. Is that more of a comfort thing for him with not having Jalen Hood-Schifino on the floor? Do you think he's I don't want to say pressing because he didn't take a lot of bad shots last night. He just felt like he was trying to do too much, almost put the team too much on his shoulders. And I don't know if that's Jalen Hood-Schifino not being in the lineup because we really hadn't seen that through the first 7 games of the season.
Yeah, and I think that Xavier Johnson, before Jalen's injury, I think he finally just got comfortable playing alongside with them.
Right.
Same with Jalen. You saw what he did in the North Carolina game where that backcourt finally clicked.
Yep.
And I feel for Xavier Johnson in a way because it did throw off his game a little bit. And he's reverting back to that old, like the very first time that we saw Xavier Johnson, the Notre Dame game last year, the early part of the season. We're seeing that Xavier Johnson. We're not seeing the Xavier Johnson, from the Big Ten tournament. It is a little concerning. I will say, especially the turnover rate right now, he's just playing a little bit too fast. I don't know. He's just got to realize that there's a lot of talent on that team. He doesn't have to do it all, even though I know he wants to. That's just kind of his mentality. But hopefully with Jalen Hood-Schifino, hopefully he's back this weekend. We'll see how his injury is. I think you'll see Xavier Johnson play much better when Hood-Schifino's back in the lineup.
Well, there's no question. I think that he's still pushing. And Trey Galloway is not Jalen Hood-Schifino, which is obvious. They have very different games. I think that Trey is a better shooter right now than Jalen is. He's shown that from that work that he's put into that, and has shown a little bit of that. But he's not the playmaker that Jalen Hood-Schifino is. He's not the passer that Jalen Hood-Schifino is. He can't see the floor like Jalen Hood-Schifino. And that's not a knock on Trey Galloway. That's because Jalen Hood-Schifino is a 5-star. And I'm not saying it just because he's a 5-star because he has those qualities. I've seen it, watched it. He does. And Indiana is not going to be as good without him in the lineup, period, end of story. But having him back in the lineup, having Trey Galloway coming off the bench, this team can be strong. But I think that I don't know that they can win. It's not can, but I don't know that they would win against Arizona without Jalen Hood-Schifino in the lineup. But then you have to wonder what percentage is he back? Is he 70, 80%? Are they holding him out? Is he ready to go? That stuff we won't know until Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a big piece for this Indiana team. I mean, they're a completely different team when he's on the floor. These last 2 games, you've pretty much seen last year's Indiana team a little bit. Just a little uncomfortable at times on the offense. Xavier Johnson doing a little bit too much. Luckily, we've seen improvements from Trey Galloway, Tamar Bates, and Miller Kopp, those kind of guys where they've stepped up and they've been able to kind of push through. You saw that last night. But Jalen Hood-Schifino back in the lineups probably better sooner than later for Indiana, especially once they start getting into the Big Ten play and everything. So his health is probably going to be something to watch out for the remaining of the season, just for that reason. Same thing with Trace Jackson Davis. He's playing, but he's still got that lingering back issue and everything. So it's all about, Indiana's had a history of, untimely, health problems. Hopefully they can kind of, pass through that. Hopefully they get Jalen Hood-Schifino back. Arizona this Saturday, because without them, I don't know how Indiana is going to be able to make enough plays on the floor to get that win.
We talk a lot about some of the getting a little nitpicky after a 16-point win. So one of the things I did notice, I thought that was a positive last night, Kyler, was it seemed like anytime Nebraska made some sort of run, and I know really the only time they made some sort of push was early in that second half when they got the lead down to a 7-point game. But I thought that anytime Nebraska really made some sort of push, Indiana kind of slowed down their offense, passed the ball around, got a good look. Maybe they didn't always hit it, but they got a good look, and a lot of times they did convert on those shots. I mean, I thought you saw the maturity of an experienced team, even again without Jalen Hood-Schifino, with some of your rotations, maybe a little not what they're going to typically be throughout the season. I was impressed at the fact that they didn't try to hurry up and get a quick 2 points or try to, at the snap of a finger, end Nebraska's drought. They were patient. They got good looks at the basket. And I thought that was a step of something we hadn't seen maybe from this team in the last couple of years. Just a lot of maturity and the wherewithal to go, you know what, we don't have to get a 2 points here in the next 5 seconds. Let's get a good shot, make this possession count. And I think after Nebraska cut it to 7, I think they got a 3 and pushed it right back up to 10. And that was pretty much the end of the game. So really impressed with that from that experience and just being able to know to slow it down and get a good shot as opposed to trying to just, stop the bleeding with a quick 2.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. This team's easily one of the most mature teams Indiana's had in a long time. I would say going back to Yogi Ferrell's senior year, I would say that, that team was very mature, a lot of leaders. And you see, a lot of leadership on the floor this year. Trace Jackson-Davis does an amazing job with that. Race Thompson, Miller Cobb, those guys really take pride in being leaders of this team. And you're right. I mean, Indiana's when Nebraska would get on a run, yes, Indiana kind of started that second half very, not a whole lot of energy there, which was shocking to me considering how many turnovers they had in the first half. You figured they'd come out with a little bit more fire, but Indiana's they're a very smart team. I'll say that. They know that they have good players on their team. And they know that they don't need to rush, this year. Right. I mean, there are moments where they get in, fast-paced environments and everything. You saw it with Xavier. He played just a little bit too fast. I go back to last night. There was a play, I think right before the first half, where Xavier Johnson tried to push it out 1 versus 5 in transition. And as soon as he crossed the half-court line, Mike Wilson called the timeout. So, they still struggle with those kind of problems and everything. But, luckily they're smart enough to say, hey, Nebraska's getting on a run here. Let's not force anything. And that just shows the maturity of this team.
They had 14 points in the paint against Rutgers and 38, I think. 38 against Nebraska last night. And there's not a ton of difference in roster size between those two teams, but Rutgers just wanted it more, worked way harder at preventing Indiana from being successful in the paint, number one, but also last night, Indiana, it was not just race and trace. It was far from it. Everybody was scoring in the paint, whether it was even Xavier trying to get there where he didn't, he had a 2 for 8 night, but Miller Kopp scored points in the paint. Tamar Bates scored points in the paint. Trey Galloway scored points in the paint. So it was a much, much more shared offense last night.
Yeah, the ball movement was incredible for Indiana. Obviously not as good at Rutgers, so that kind of proved to be true, with the way Indiana played. But the ball movement was excellent last night. Like you said, they were scoring a bunch in the paint. If you compare Rutgers to Nebraska, Rutgers has got just a little bit more talent in their front court than Nebraska does. And it showed. I mean, Trace Jackson-Davis was really quick about getting out of double teams. The thing that always impresses me with Trace Jackson-Davis when he's in double team situations, his court vision out of those is just fantastic. And he made some amazing passes, as you saw with 10 assists last night. So, but yeah, the paint was very easy for Indiana. They crashed the glass a lot better than they did at Rutgers, won like 35-25 on the rebounding battle. But yeah, Indiana, they took advantage of the paint situation there last night.
And to talk more about that offense, 22 assists on 32 made field goals.
Incredible.
That's 66% basically of your shots. That's an astoundingly high number.
On top of that, just real quick, TJD accounts for half of that. So that's insane.
There you go. Exactly. Wow. 10 assists. It's right. 10 assists for the big man. And that shows another element to his game that Indiana needs to continue to exploit, because that would add another element to this offense of him being a passer out of the post and not just a scorer. Because if they can get these guys to having these consistent performances, especially the guys off the bench, Bates and Galloway, Geronimo was kind of a missing piece there. Malik Renew seems to have plateaued a little bit.
Yeah, he's just struggled playing better competition. Indiana's going to really need him to stay out of foul trouble this weekend because Arizona's got some very talented bigs. So Malik Renew is going to be one of those key pieces for Indiana this weekend. So he's just got to be aware of that. Hopefully we see a much better game from him.
Yep. All right, brother. Well, I cannot thank you enough. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com and follow Kyler Staley and the rest of the crew as they'll keep you updated on all IU news and recruiting information. Appreciate you, brother.
Yep. We'll see you in Vegas.
Absolutely. Kyler Staley joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Much more coming up. Brought to you by our good friends at Metalworks Brewing, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wild Club. Metalworks located down off of the square, catty corner to Cape Ello. Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art, alongside their desire to be actively involved in the community. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home... okay, we'll do those clips in this segment, John, if you have them.
We're supposed to have Chris Denari, but if not, we can do the clips.
Oh, I forgot.
That's right. What would you do without me, Jimbo?
Well, that's... hey... not survive.
Does not want to think about it.
That's
Chris is going to be back home for the first time in 2 weeks.
And then Dustin Dopirak at 10-10.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Pacers turning into the Pacers.
Yeah, that you know what? We said if they got 3 and 4, it was a good road trip, and they 2 and 5. So, and they almost won last night. So,
I wish I liked the NBA. It seems fun, but also seems very time consuming. That's the big takeaway. Same with MLB. There's too many games.
Well, the thing about the MLB is there's literally nothing else going on. I mean, I watch golf, but it's baseball and golf. And
around here, at least in my area, that's the MLB season is the exact same season as USL soccer.
Oh,
yeah. City FC.
Yeah, I like baseball, I like the NBA. It is time consuming, especially when you watch as much college basketball as I do, but it's fun. I like it. I did not stay up at these ungodly tip times and watch. I watched, I think, 2 or 3 of the games, the Pacers out of the 7, just because I got to wake up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, bro, jackass.
I hope he's listening.
Me too. Texted me at 1:30 in the morning. Chris Denari, how are you, brother?
Hey, I'm home finally.
He's exhausted.
Wow.
Mr. West Coast.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you're not wearing an ascot.
Yeah.
12
days.
I can't imagine.
12 West Coast days, and I leave for Las Vegas tomorrow night.
Yeah, but how long are you going to be there? I mean, IU plays Saturday, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't get back until Monday, and then go to Kansas at the end of the week, come back Indianapolis Sunday, fly out again.
Here we go.
Be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hops' Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this Thursday, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here, brought to you by our good friend at Courtroom Sports Grill down in Bedford. Great place to catch a game. They pride themselves on providing their guests with fresh, innovative dishes with a Cajun cuisine designed to please your palate and your wallet. Made from scratch, fresh ingredients only. Chris Denari, the voice of the Pacers, joining us fresh off of his trip around the world. Actually, it's just to the West Coast, but it probably feels like a trip around the world, Chris.
It does. I got back about 2:30, 2:45 last night. Fortunately, we were coming from Minneapolis to end the road trip. But, yeah, that's the longest road trip in the last 37 years for the Pacers. 7 games, 12 days.
Holy cow.
2 and 5 on the road trip. Tough loss last night. down 23 early, take an 8-point lead in the third quarter, tied with about a minute to play, and Minnesota scored the last 6. But I give them a lot of credit because I thought the Pacers played well last night, trying to back up a Monday night terrific win. I mean, the last 2 Mondays, last second win against the Lakers with Andrew Nembhard, the rookie, hitting a 3. And then Monday night, really a dominant performance, very undermanned against the defending champs in Golden State. Nembhard goes for 31. So I think all in all, guys, if you would have told me back in August when we were doing this show, you'd come back from the longest road trip of the year, 25 games in, you'd be 13-12 and 6th in the Eastern Conference, I think anybody would have taken that. Anybody would have taken that. You get a little greedy as things go on, but I really think for all intents and purposes, 13-12 through 25 games with this young group, I think you have to feel pretty good.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone would have expected it, Dustin.
No.
That's the thing. So there's no expectations. And to get you just said, a win over the Warriors, you're going to be okay at 2. If you're like 2-5, yeah, I'll take that.
Well, going into this road trip, Chris, I thought a lot of people talked, and I agreed. If you go 3-4 on this road trip, you're going to consider it a pretty successful road trip. And 2-5 with a chance to beat Minnesota last night, I'm still pretty pleased with it. I think we saw, though, this team still has some growing up to do, still a young team, and playing that many games away from home in a row in that short a time frame takes its toll. And so to me, I'm not so worried about the wins and losses. I'm looking at this more of these are players that are getting used to each other, getting used to the grind of an 82-game schedule, and how are you going to perform when your back's up against the wall? I know they played some duds. They didn't play well against Sacramento, didn't play particularly well against Portland or Utah, but it's part of the growing process. Everybody said coming into this season there's going to be a lot to learn for these young guys, and I just think I look more at the overall picture. Like you said, 13-12, 2-5 with a shot to go 3-4. I think on that road trip, I think you're pretty happy with where they are.
Yeah, especially when you think you talk about those 3 in a row. They had their 3 worst losses of the year all in a row. Sacramento, Utah, and Portland. I think one of the things that this group is still trying to figure out is how do you start games. I mean, the starts have been last night was disastrous. I mean, you were down 18 at the end of the first quarter that led to a 23-point deficit. So you've got to figure out how to get off to better starts, because if you get off to better starts, you don't put yourself in position to have to make these sort of miraculous comebacks. And the Pacers have made 8 comeback wins last night. Or this year. Last night, they almost pulled off their second 20-point comeback win. So, but you're right. You can see growth. I think everybody felt very fortunate to get a player like Andrew Nembhard out of Gonzaga with the first pick out of the second round. And I think we have seen over the course of the last 4 or 5 games on this road trip just how valuable he can be. Jalen Smith, that didn't play last night with a sore knee, first game he had missed, but he's played very well in his first really ever starting role in the NBA. So I do think, like you said, Dustin, if you look at the long game and what this team has put together over the first 25 games, you've got to feel pretty pleased. I think the coaching staff, I think Rick Carlisle's done a really good job with this group. I think they've gotten better defensively. Early on, that was a question, but they have gotten better. So now you sort of, take that first 25 and it's on a shelf. You know what you've done. And now you look at the next 25 that starts tomorrow with a home game against Washington and see what you can do.
I'm thinking I might be able to make it down there. I'm back in Indiana, so I'll see if I can make it down to the game tomorrow night to see this team live and in action. But one thing I wanted to go back to real quick from about 2 weeks ago, Chris, was when Andrew Nembhard hit that game-winning shot against the Lakers. First of all, I was surprised you had a voice for the next game, because that was that was about as exciting a moment I think I've seen. But the second part was in the post-game interview with Jeremiah Johnson. All of his teammates surrounded him and were waiting for him basically to get off the microphone and celebrate even more with him. I just think one of the things that I'm looking at is this team really enjoys playing together, and I think they've put out multiple tweets like "I like us" or "I love us" or something like that. It's just, this is a group that I think can really blossom. And I know a lot of people thought coming into the season they're going to tank, they're going to get Victor Wembanyama, but this team is good. They love playing together. It's just fun to watch. And I thought you saw that more from not just an on-court chemistry, but to see all those players gathered around Andrew Nembhard after him hitting that game-winning shot, I thought was a really cool moment.
Yeah, you've hit on it. And I think in my conversations with staff people, and that would be sports performance, or athletic trainers, most of whom have been there about as long as I have, 17, 18 years, they feel like it is the most connected group that they've ever had. And they've had some pretty good groups. I mean, if you go back to those teams that went to the Eastern Conference Finals, you had some very close groups. But they believe that this is the closest group. They're in it for each other, and that's been big. And maybe they have sort of an us against the world mentality, but you've got a lot of young guys that are willing to listen, willing to learn. You've got enough veterans that can help coach them up. So you've got the right mix. And I think that's been essential to the way that they've played. The thing that I think is that they play with a joy. And I think really one of the things is that starts with Tyrese Halliburton. When you're the guy that has been sort of said you're the face of the franchise, you've got to try to lead this team. That can be daunting at times, especially for a 22-year-old. But he plays with such a joy. He's so welcoming. He's so unselfish that I think that makes it easy for the rest of the team to follow suit. And so I think you're spot on, Dustin. You saw that at the end of that game, just how the reaction was from his teammates waiting for him. And I think that's a big part of why the Pacers have gotten out to a better start than most people would have thought.
And we talk a lot about the rookies, the young guys, Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mather, and Andrew Nembhard. To me, one of the cool stories this season through the first 25 games has been Miles Turner. He's played extremely well. He hit some huge shots last night to keep the Pacers in it against Minnesota last night and gave him a shot to win down the stretch. I mean, this is a guy who's been rumored to be on the trading block. There have been some fans who have been critical of his play. It would be so easy for him to just kind of cash it in, maybe say, I'm not going to play until I'm traded, or pull some sort of stunt. I don't know if I should call it a stunt, but do something along those lines that we've seen other NBA players do. And for him to go out and play and not just go through the motions, but to play well, to want to win with this team, I mean, I think that really speaks. He's always been a good player. He's always been a very mature player for the Pacers. And now to kind of take on that leadership role, despite some of the things he's had to go through, I've been thoroughly impressed with his, not just his play, but his attitude throughout the first 25 games.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, he's putting up career best numbers, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 55% from the field. I think with his performance last night, he's now over 40% from three-point range. And so he's fit in well with this group, because now you don't have the two bigs, right,
Yeah.
with Sabonis and Turner. They tried to make it work, and it just didn't quite work. Miles is more comfortable as the 5. He is comfortable now, not just picking and popping, but in rolling to the basket. He's got more rolls to the rim than we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years. So I think you're right. He's very comfortable in his role. I think he's excelled in his role this year, and he's been as consistent a performer on the floor as we've seen in some time with Miles Turner.
How's Quinn doing?
He's doing well. I mean, we've had a lot of fun on this road trip. Always, if you can pull out a couple of wins, especially the way the Pacers did it, winning in the last seconds against LA and beating the Lakers and then beating Golden State on Monday. I think, for most of us, I know last week in that LA, Sacramento, Utah week, I didn't feel very good. I mean, I was a little bit under the weather. There's no worse place to be under the weather than in a hotel room, right?
Yeah.
And so it was good as the week went on to get healthier. The one thing about when you are on the road, you try to get more rest because you just don't have as much to do. You're in and out of the cold, and it snowed in Portland. It snowed in Minneapolis. It was cold in Utah. So, it's good to have the 2 longest road trips of the year done. We had a 5-game road trip early, a 7-game road trip. I think we have 3 4-game road trips left. But as we all said on this last road trip, those 3 4-game road trips will feel like nothing after you've been on the road for 7 straight.
Well, and now you get the luxury of coming home. You got the Pacers have 4 straight home games, and you look at on paper should be a little bit of a lighter stretch here in terms of competition as well. And then you've got 5 of the next 6, and the only road trip really is Cleveland in that stretch. So this is going to be a nice getting back home, playing in front of a home crowd. I mean, do you think that's going to provide a nice energy level for the Pacers coming home with a 4-game stretch here? And they got Washington, Brooklyn, Miami, and Golden State. So by the records, not that great, but at the same time, you're going to have your hands full with these next 4 opponents.
Yeah, Washington under 500, Brooklyn's right around where the Pacers are. Miami's been disappointing, but hey, anytime you have Jimmy Butler and company, Kyle Lowry, and then of course you'll have the rematch with Golden State. Watch tomorrow night's game because the Friday night, the first home game back after a long road trip is one of the most difficult games that you will play because it almost feels like you're still on the road. And then the Pacers have to play a back-to-back against a Brooklyn team that they rallied to beat the night after Thanksgiving. So, it's not easy. There are really there are no donuts on the schedule, if you will. You look at every opponent. I mean, think about this. Brooklyn on Saturday night, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are probably 2 of the best players in the world. And you have Ben Simmons back. So you just got to take it one step at a time. They get a little bit of a break tomorrow night. Bradley Beal's out with an injury. But still, this is a Washington team with Porzingis and enough talent, Kyle Kuzma, that if you don't play well, they'll beat you. So tomorrow night will be an interesting, critical game because in my long tenure of doing NBA games, that first game back after a long trip, especially out west, sometimes you can feel like you're in a trance. And so tomorrow night will be the game to watch for the Pacers as they start this 4-game homestand.
Well, brother, I hope you're able to get you some rest and not have to wear yourself out like you have. What's the schedule like? You guys are home. Oh, wow.
We're home games.
Home for a week. And then we only have to pack for 1 game. So that's a win.
Lovely. Brother, appreciate you. Hope you have a great weekend.
All right, thanks. So hopefully, Dustin, you can make it to the game tomorrow.
Well, I'm hoping so.
Okay, sounds good.
Have a great day, Chris Denari. Joining us, the voice of the Pacers, as they are their season continues. Dustin loves the Pacers fan. Again, you're going to a Pacers game. Still haven't seen you. Huh. Funny.
We've been over this. I said I was going to come down to the game on Wednesday, but you told me you were flying out to Vegas. Liar.
I am.
Well, yeah, but you didn't on Wednesday now, did you?
Well, that's because they changed. They screwed my flight. They screwed me. So, but oh well. We got to take a break. Up next, Dustin Dopirak will join us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Cabello, another part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Looking for something different for lunch or dinner? Visit Cabello Restaurant, located on the square in downtown Bloomington, Indiana. Experience the taste and traditions of the Italian heritage right here in southern Indiana. Handmade pasta and house-made desserts waiting for you. Back after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether it's at
all right, trading a Dustin for a Dustin.
That's right. We are doing that, aren't we?
Yep. I will see you gentlemen tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Have
Hopefully
a good
both
day,
of us. We'll see if Jimbo is awake for
us. That's true. We might be running the show.
Ooh.
All right. Later, guys.
See you, buddy.
Have a safe flight, Jim.
Thank you.
What time is your flight today?
Tonight, 9:50.
Out of Indianapolis, I assume?
Yes.
You don't have to say that like it's a dumbass question. Like,
no, I'm just
going
pissed.
Down to Louisville if you had to.
I'm pissed off at this whole situation. My flight, I booked this flight to leave at 2 to get in at 5 out there.
Oh wow!
And it's a wasted effing day. I get in at 11 o'clock Vegas time, which is 2 a.m. our time, which it's a pointless to. That's why originally I was going Wednesday, and I'm like, well, that screws that day. Hello, Dustin Dopirak.
Hello, Jim. How are you, sir?
Wonderful. How have you been?
Not bad. I am slowly getting back to life in the Eastern Time Zone.
Yeah, we just got off with Chris Denari.
Yeah.
You could tell, man. He
it took some wear and tear. He's I mean, he went through another day than I did. I came back from San Francisco, so I didn't go last night. But yeah, it's been a trip. It's been something else. 6 cities is a lot. Like, I guess 5. I guess I was in 5. He was in 6. But
now they've already changed my flight to Vegas once. Now they're seeking bids for volunteers. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a high ass bid. I ain't going cheap, baby.
Yeah, no question.
I don't get out there till 11 o'clock Vegas time tonight, as it is.
Oof.
I'm like, so what's the option tomorrow?
Yeah, I forgot we're getting up to it, huh?
Oh, I forgot about the red panda.
She's awesome.
Damn it.
She is awesome. I just saw a video from her.
I put up a quick video at halftime, and I swear to God, in 10 minutes, it had over 100 likes. 10 minutes. I was like, I looked down, I'm like, what the thing? Just spinning like a slot machine. I'm like, holy crap.
Here
we go. Their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday, brought to you by our good friends from Bubba's 33 down in Clarksville. If you're down in southern Indiana, right off of I-65. 50-something TVs, great place to watch a game. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. We just got off with Chris Denari, and I know you're on the Pacers beat now. So how was your Western Road swing, baby?
It was long. It was great. It was long. I mean, I'm sure Chris feels the same way. Because I didn't go to Minneapolis last night. That wasn't part of our sort of coverage plan from the beginning. But did the rest of them, and that's a long time on Pacific time. And it's was a lot of bouncing around, a lot of time away, and so it beat you up pretty good. And I'm sure Chris is exhausted. I think we all were. I think everybody who was part of that trip, everybody who had to do that trip was pretty tired. But I mean, for one thing, learned a lot about this team. But you get to go to some fun places. I mean, San Francisco is gorgeous. Los Angeles is gorgeous. Salt Lake City is gorgeous in its own way. Sacramento is interesting. I mean, like just a lot of cool places that I had not been before. So that was a trip. It was a heck of an experience.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to flying out tonight, back out to the west to Las Vegas. I mentioned the break on a flight that's already been rescheduled. Now they're asking for volunteers, so I'm looking forward to a flight that I know is going to be like being in a sardine can.
It's gonna be tight,
3.5 hours. 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
The only good thing is it's late, and I hope that I fall asleep.
Yeah,
if that's possible.
Yeah, that'll get you there. Then you'll be in Vegas, and then you won't sleep for like 3 days at all.
There's that. There's that, and then you got to come back, and that time zone thing just punches you right in the gut, which I'm sure you're experiencing. That trip to Portland last year, that was hard. that just because it was so much bang, 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 but part of the deal. I know in your position covering the Pacers, you don't get to follow the Hoosiers quite as much now. Last night, Indiana back on the winning ways with a win over Nebraska. Nebraska coming off of a shocking win, one of the biggest upsets of the year, knocking off Creighton in Omaha, a place they haven't won it since '95. But man, they at no point did that I feel they stressed Indiana last night at all. And part of it was you give Indiana credit for, and the other part of it was Nebraska was a little bit better than Nebraska's been.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like every year right around now, usually when Indiana almost always gets Nebraska in its December games for whatever reason, whether it's home or on the road. It just tends to work out that way. Basically when they have those two in December that they end up playing. And I feel like at this point we're always like, well, maybe Nebraska, you never know. They might be all right. And then Indiana just trucks them by 20. Nebraska is always good for like one flash of just maybe, like in November and December. They're always sort of good for that. Well, they played somebody closer than they were supposed to. They beat somebody they weren't supposed to beat. Something like that. And Creighton's an extreme example, because that Creighton team's really good, and is going to be really good. I mean, like, because you definitely do overreact to like one result at this point in the year. Where I think it's easy to overreact to Indiana losing to Rutgers in the same way. I'm not surprised, especially playing them at home. Usually playing them on the road is a bit of a different issue. It's a weird place to play. And they draw pretty well, and it's a nice arena and whatnot out in Lincoln. But this one, I wasn't surprised to see them come off of the game they had against Rutgers. As bad as they got beat up, I figured they would be bothered and annoyed, and they would just put it to Nebraska. I didn't think they were going to have a tough time with this one, and man, they really did put it to them. But I mean, I think, obviously it stands out. The numbers that stood out to me, and I had it on, like I was watching Pacers on my TV and Indiana on my laptop, and trying to sort of look back and forth, and also like have conversations with my wife and stuff. So like I was sort of all over the place. That thing line that's on the bottom right now, Brittany Green.
Talk about some breaking news. That's
about an hour ago. So it's been.
I did not see that. That shocks me because I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but I was just reading about her being shipped off to basically some gulag and
penal colony. Penal colony.
And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, she can seriously be gone. Which that just sucks. It's not. I'm not a fan of her. But it doesn't matter.
Made her do the whole bit. Yeah. No. I mean, I would have been. We'll get back on this. I'll get back to Indiana basketball. I promise. But yeah. No. They ended up having to trade the arms dealer Victor Bout for her straight up 1-to-1. They were trying to get,
which is great now. Which is, I think there's going to be a lot of people that have problems with that.
There are.
And I'm not going to disagree that they shouldn't.
I mean, here's the issue. Like, she was doing a bit that was way more than people do for the same offense. I mean, drug offenses carry up to 10 years, but like, she was arrested and given the whole 9.5 years for the purpose of this. Like, this was a political job. Like this was, a dictator in the middle of a deeply unpopular war, like at home, and a absolutely condemnable war abroad, basically one that everybody sees as very clearly aggressive and, a straight up invasion, trying to get something out of the United States because they could. And it was, like there's cultural issues involved. He is obviously not a fan of the LGBTQ community, and Brittany Griner is a member of that. Like for all the reasons, this was political and symbolic, and they got her on basically nothing. I mean, like I just read this again, 0.7 of a gram. She was going to do 9.5 years for 0.7 of a gram, like residue in the hash pipe. I mean, like if you're I get it. I'm not a drug guy myself, but dear Lord, I mean, that's insane. And so like, it was obviously
we're basically talking about marijuana here though, right?
Yeah. Marijuana. This was always symbolic.
It's a joke.
Yeah, this was always a symbolic political deal. Like if anyone's like, well, like anybody else would have got that and they would have got 10 years. No, they had her trapped because she was a basketball player, because she was prominent. And she checked some of these other boxes that Vladimir Putin individually, personally does not like.
Yeah.
So like, let's not act like, oh, like you guys made this deal and it's such a bad thing. Like you couldn't let her do 9.5 years. Like she was that because they could make her, into a totem. Like she didn't owe 9.5 years. So yeah, it's not, but like it was insane. And like none of it's cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, but it's international, like espionage, stuff like that. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. Like they grabbed somebody symbolically because they wanted somebody that we had, and that the United States had basically. And like it comes back to nobody ever better go play there ever again. I mean, there was a reason why women's basketball players were playing in Russia. They were paying much, much better than the United States was, and then any other foreign country was, for reasons dealing with like all those oligarchs made that like kind of their deal. That was kind of a prestige thing. It was sports washing. It was all that kind of stuff. So nobody better ever go there again. Even when this war is over, even if Vladimir Putin is ousted, nobody better ever go play basketball in that country ever again. Men, women, anybody, for this, flat out. Anyway, back to Indiana basketball. So no, I mean, I think what stands out, obviously Trace Jackson Davis was phenomenal, posting a triple-double. I mean, 11 assists, I think that's really, I think the biggest area of growth for him as a player that
importance. I mean, the importance of that.
Sure.
I talked about the importance of, because that's another element of Indiana's offense. If they can consistently, and if it's not Trace Jackson Davis, if he can pass out of the post to get scoring, that's what Indiana, and that's another element that Indiana needs to be an elite team. They're not an elite team yet, but they can be. I mean, they have the components to be that. They're not that yet. Of course, part of it has been injuries, and I think these injuries have actually been beneficial. You're forcing Tamar Bates and Trey Galloway to play some minutes that they normally wouldn't play, and they're responding very well. It's hurt Xavier right now. Hopefully he's able to use this as learning tools, but the last couple of games have really affected him. It's really affected his play.
Sure. Yeah. No, it puts some stress back on him, and he's going to be back to feeling like he's got to do everything. And, that's X. It's just you have to you ride those waves with him. Basically, that there's going to be some periods where he thinks he has to do it all, and when he does that, he tends to make some mistakes, play too fast, try too hard. When he's playing with Hood Schifino together, I think he found a rhythm for how does he do exactly what he's supposed to do. And both those guys sort of play off of each other. Like I think that took him a while too, to get used to, how do I modulate myself, basically, that I'm not, because he felt like he had to do everything last year, and he was mostly right, because I mean, they had Rob Finney, and they could play together and stuff, but Finney's not as dynamic as Schifino is, and I think he also felt like he had to prove he belonged, and he had to prove that, like, the freshman cup wasn't going to come in and just take his job, and then they could play together, and he was still necessary.
A lot of talk about Trace Jackson Davis before this season, with him developing a jump shot, the lack thereof, the yada yada yada. He continues to just do things though that are so good. I don't know. Is his game gotten to the point to where I still don't know that he's gotten to the point to where he can do without that shot for his future?
I mean, he's gonna, like, just after having spent a couple weeks in the NBA. Now I'm all like, educated, right? Sure, whatever. No, but I mean, there's definitely a place for him. I mean, the issue is he's not. I don't think he can start with what he has. I think that's sort of the issue. He's not a top 10 pick. He's not a top 15 pick. Or maybe if he can hit some shots, like he goes up. I mean, you just want proof that he can shoot the ball. He got to take sometime. I mean, he really does. There's got to be a point where he takes some jumpers. Now, I'm sure part of the issue was the thumb. I'm sure that didn't help. basically because I'm sure he didn't feel confident pulling up and doing something he's never done before when he's not operating at 100%. You know, and I imagine that when that thing gets healthy, then he's going to try some. But I mean, he does have to. I mean, he really has to do it. Like he has to cross that Rubicon and say, I'm taking a couple of these. And I understand why he doesn't do it. Now, the one thing I'll say, especially having watched some of this, like the thing about the NBA is everybody thinks they can make them like that like, but it's not like the percentage is lights out in the NBA. I mean, there's a lot of guys taking a lot of bad shots. And there's a lot of guys missing. I mean, the thing about it is just anybody on the floor can hit it, and that spaces the floor. But it's not like, even like Curry is at like 41, 42, somewhere in that range. Like these guys aren't hitting 50. It's not like they're walking in the door like everybody's truly a lights out 3-point shooter. It's everybody's capable. And so Trace just has to prove he's capable. But it is important that he does. I mean, like you've got to be able to space the floor. You've got to be able to pick and pop. Like if you're going to be a 5, you got to be able to pick and pop. And if you're going to be a 4, you better be able to sit in the corner and hit one. Just from time to time. Doesn't have to be all the time. You got to be able to do it sometimes. But you can get on the floor. Like Isaiah Jackson doesn't shoot from outside. But he plays 4 and the 5 as a rim runner with a whole ton of explosion. But he comes off the bench, and I don't think that's going to change. I think he's a very good bench player doing that. And obviously he's been in since he was a freshman. I think he might have more raw athleticism than Trace does, where Trace has a better all around game. But if you can't shoot, you're probably coming off the bench as a 4 and a 5.
Fred Hoiberg said that Trace plays better than his dad, Dale Davis.
I'm sure he does. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a different world. It's just a different world. I mean, like, again, like there are 5 big men that are playing college basketball right now that had they come out in 2003 would have been top 15 picks. No doubt. 100%. You could say that with absolute certainty. Trace, Baycott, Timmy, who am I forgetting? Dickinson, definitely. And Shibwe, 100%. Absolutely are top 15 picks last year before, if this was 2003, but it's not.
The defense, Trace Jackson Davis, for me, has really picked up. I'm not that he wasn't playing last year, but it's this year. It just seems to be just a step more. It's like, man, he is a little more conscious. Getting a shot up around him is difficult. And to the other side, though, every time you think Race Thompson is kind of slacked off because he gets some nights he is.
Bad night against Rutgers. Just had a bad.
But then other nights where he's kind of quiet, but he had 9 points on 4 of 7 shooting last night, 6 rebounds in 25 minutes.
Right.
Not much to complain about.
No, Race is going to do fine. He's had a couple bad games and he's getting pushed. Like you can now put 2 other guys in his position. You can put, obviously Geronimo, you can play there. You can put Reno there. And I think the fan base is looking at that and saying like that, oh, you got to play that guy. You got to play that guy. You got to play that guy. And they've sort of reached this point that like, well, I've seen enough of Race, and it's like, well, I want to see what these guys can do because they've got higher ceilings and more potential and they're more raw athletes, man. Race has had a extremely productive career. He is gritty as all get out. And, he does so many things right. And so like, you don't want to, run him off just because he had a bad game. He's not capable of the same kind of spectacular that Geronimo is because he doesn't have that leaping ability. And Reno is going to be special. I know Reno didn't have a good game against Rutgers either, but I mean, you've seen enough to know Reno is going to be really, really good.
Oh, absolutely.
Reno's an all Big Ten player next year. Once he can, be their 5 guy, no doubt. If he's an all Big Ten player, if he's not an All-American. I think CJ Moore, who I respect an absolute ton at the Athletic, their Kansas guy, thinks, tweeted out, I think, at the beginning of the year that he thinks that's possible, that Reno could be an All-American. And that's, really impressive. So the thing about it is with those 2 guys nipping at his heels, everybody's, I think, picking on Race more. But
yeah,
Race has done a lot. Race can guard so many positions. He does so many smart things. And he's such a good, character guy. Don't forget about Race. Don't everybody, make this a deal I mean, you guys could do whatever you want. You're Indiana fans. I'm not. But like, you'd be making a mistake if everybody, kind of creates this public pressure campaign to, get Race fewer minutes. That's.
Oh yeah, that absolutely. I agree with that absolutely, because if you watch Malik Renew right now, like you said, he's going to be great, but he's not yet. He's learning, and as the competition level has increased, we've seen him.
Yeah,
with the learning curve is picked up for him. The game is just faster, and that's why he's getting more fouls. And these guys are older, bigger, stronger than he is. Period.
Yeah, the guys he was playing in what? the guys he was playing in November were they've never seen anything like him. And especially when when Indiana goes to the bench and Bethune-Cookman goes to the bench, it's not fair. Like, that's where you really see the difference. No one on Bethune-Cookman or anybody else they played in November has a guy that can even, remotely deal with Malik Reneau.
Nope.
Brother, Rutgers does. So,
I cannot thank you enough for stepping up. We appreciate you for filling in today, and hope you get some rest, and look forward to seeing you on Monday.
I will. Sounds good, man. Thank you.
The great Dustin Dopirak joining us, as I thank everybody today. Dustin Schutte as well. Chris Denari. And John, the producer, for keeping us between the lines. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Back tomorrow to do this again. We'll be coming to you from Las Vegas as Indiana heads out to take on the Arizona Wildcats this weekend. So looking forward to that and much more. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Go out and have yourselves a great day. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.